This is just the beginning.
Hello and welcome to an Axios virtual event, and welcome to my TV room. I'm Mike Allen, a co-founder of Axios, and thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the future of workplace safety. We appreciate our sponsor, Global Plasma Solutions, who have made this conversation possible. And while so many of us have been thinking about how are we going to work from home, our guests today have been thinking about how do we get us back in the workplace? How are we going to get people safely and comfortably back to work? So we have a great conversation coming up. We'd love for you to tweet along at hashtag Axios Events, and you can follow the conversation also on at Axios Events. We have a newsletter, Axios AM. You can have me in your inbox every morning at signup.axios.com, signup.axios.com. As for Axios AM and PM and others. So our first guest has really been innovating in this COVID moment. He's had a big team that ever since the virus hit has been thinking about what is going to be the new future of the workplace. Scott Rechler is the chairman and CEO of RXR Realty, which is in New York. All of their properties in New York, they have like 26 million square feet right there in the epicenter. Scott, thanks for joining Axios.
Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Scott, you have some iconic buildings, 75 Rockefeller Plaza, the Helmsley building. You've been thinking about how do we get people back into these? And Scott, you have been through a few crises.
I have. We lived through 9/11. We lived through the Great Recession. We lived through Superstorm Sandy. This has been something, I think, a combination of all three and worse in terms of how many people it's impacted. Obviously, as a crisis of humanity, and being in New York at the epicenter of this has been very challenging with the loss of life. And we've all done our job as a community by staying at home, which has enabled us to flatten the curve. But now we're trying to figure out how to get business going again. And it's not going to be business as usual, nor should it be business as usual, because on the other side of this, we're going to be coming back to not the new normal, but what I like to call the new abnormal, which is finding a way of how we're going to coexist while the virus is still out there. And as you noted in your opening comments, how do we do that and bring people back to the workplace where they are safe, they feel safe, and that they are in a situation where they can be in the workplace and change their behavior to get the best of the workplace, but at the same time make sure that we're able to maintain the health and wellness of themselves, their colleagues, and everyone working in our buildings.
Now, Scott, you point out that each of those crises, and you even left one off. You even had another crisis. We can date both of ourselves. We both lived through the SNL crisis of the late 80s, early 90s. And a big point you make to your team is that every one of those has produced a new reality. So what is the recalibrated reality that you see us going back to in your buildings?
So I actually used the phrase for my team. I said, we're going to regularly recalibrate reality. And when the COVID-19 situation hit, I said, we're going to be regularly recalibrating reality regularly often, very much more often than we ever have before, because it's been such a fluid event. And here it's about how do you get people from being at home and being having a lot of anxiety on purpose because they've been sort of forced to stay home to feel comfortable coming back to work. And for us, it's about trying to mix the physical and the digital. How do we create an environment by using our digital tools as well as physical interactions to provide a protocol and product that gives people that sense of comfort? So we've created something called RX Well, which is a program that starts at the home, where people have an app, and when they get up in the morning, before they come to work, they'll be able to actually look at the health index, as that takes into account thousands of pieces of data every day and establishes an index rating for the health and wellness of the building. And if someone is susceptible or has someone in their house that may be sick or feels sick, if the building's health quality isn't strong, then they should stay at home and not come to work. We're talking about trying to do this slowly. and carefully and responsibly. So we're thinking about rotating people back into the office and trying to create capacity at about 25%. So there's a rotation. There's also going to be a staggering of the times that people come into work. And so with this tool, they can also see where they are in that rotation, what time they're supposed to come to work, so we can actually not have congestion in our lobbies or in our elevators. We're going to ask people to take a wellness questionnaire on our app and take their temperature, and they'll get a green or a red as to whether to come in or not. So if someone has the potential to be sick, let's not have them come out in the public before in leaving their home. When they come to the building, they'll go through a thermal scanner that will take their temperature. We have a wellness concierge that will be in all of our lobbies, and if they have a temperature reading above 100.4, that wellness concierge will be notified about that, and then we'll go and meet with that person, verify the temperature, and then move that person to take them home, have them go home, or to a medical institution.
Now, Scott, wellness concierge sounds very welcoming and fancy, but in fact, that's actually a wellness cop, right?
I wouldn't call it a cop, and we actually have in our buildings what we call experience officers, people that are there generally to help people in our lobbies, and normally it's to provide a higher sense of hospitality and service. And so we're now taking that same person, providing them with additional training, and then putting them in the position where they can then help support people that come into our buildings. And I think it's, one of the key things is this is a communal situation, right? Everyone in our buildings is concerned about the safety and welfare for their employees. And so they're all coming together to say, okay, if someone is sick, let's not have them come into buildings. When people come into buildings, we want them to wear face masks, because in public spaces, they need to wear face masks to avoid transmitting the virus, creating social distancing. And so we're using the tools and the cameras and sensors to make sure that we're maintaining social distancing, that their people are wearing face masks. So it's a compliance tool as well as also a way to change behavior, because you want this to ultimately become second nature. You want the people to come to the buildings without a sense of anxiety and feel safe and feel comfortable to get the best of what the workplace is all about.
Now, Scott, you walked me through the lobby a little bit. Keep walking. Take me into your elevator. How's the elevator going to be different? Take me to the tenant's office. What happens when I walk through that tenant's door?
No, absolutely. So the as you walk through in the elevator, the concept is to make it a touchless experience. So using Bluetooth technology, you're able to get through the elevator. And most of elevators will have an automatic dispatch, so it would only allow a certain number of people per elevator to get on the elevator, and then knows which floor that you're going to. And then when you get to your space, you'll have, again, touchless technologies to open your door. There'll also be a counter at the door, so we'll be able to ensure that the people that are there are maintaining compliance with the capacity limitations that are being set, so we know how many people are in the space. With the app, if the tenant wants it, we have it in our space, it will be able to actually help you monitor if you are social distancing. So at the end of the day, you'll get a reading to say, well, I maintain social distancing 70% of my time at the office, so I can then put myself in a situation to learn, change my behavior as we go forward. Same thing with cleaning. You want transparency. When your desk is cleaned, you're going to get a note saying that your desk was cleaned. And then, if you want deep cleaning, you can request the deep cleaning along the way. So it's behavioral enhancements, transparency for the people working in the building, so they not only are safe, feel safe, but know what's going on in the building as well.
Scott, penultimate question. We're about to get the hook here. When you started, and in each of these conversations, we like to talk about leading in crisis. When you started, you stood up a March to Memorial Day task force. And when you started it, that must have seemed like a long ways away. That's now 11 days away. How is our recalibrated reality different now than you would have thought a couple months ago?
It's interesting. I think we had a pretty good sense it was going to be challenging. I think the level of challenges began to escalate more in April, but I would say we were pretty close to where we thought things were going to ultimately go. And this March Memorial Day plan, we incorporate our entire team on executing that plan. And it's about recalibrating reality. It's about figuring out how we're going to recover for our communities and our business and for our tenants, and then how we're going to rebound stronger on the other side. And so we were all
All right,
marching in that same direction.
all right, let's march to Labor Day. Scott, the day after Labor Day, what percentage of your buildings will have some of their workers back in them?
And so, by the way, I'll introduce to my team now because I haven't done this. We're going from March to Memorial Day to a leap to Labor Day because we're going to leap to Labor Day. Because what I think is happening is that when we talk to our tenants, they're going to start coming back in probably in June, subject to the state providing guidelines. And then I would think over the summer, we're going to be rolling out all this technology, working with them to see what's working, what's not working, adjusting as we need to adjust. And I think by Labor Day, we'll probably be at a 50% level in our buildings.
So as we say goodbye, Scott, we always like to finish with one fun thing. And you're a tough New York magnate. You did a video tutorial the other day. Tell us about your video tutorial.
Right. So I love to cook, and all our teammates are home. So I did a tutorial on how to make a Tuscan pizza. I made the dough, which from scratch, and then I ultimately made a pizza with caramelized onions and goat cheese. By the way, my first take wasn't so good that my head of HR said she wasn't going to post it because she didn't want the CEO to look like he was struggling in the kitchen. But we ultimately got it done, and we're able to get this posted for the weekend.
Terrific. Well, Scott, thank you very much for sharing your insights about your March to Memorial Day, now your leap to Labor Day. Best to you and your team. Thank you for joining Axios.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Global Plasma Solutions, for making these conversations possible. And now I'm going to kick it across the river to Axios CEO Jim VandeHei.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to bring on Charlie Waddell, who is the CTO and founder of Global Plasma Solutions. Charlie, you just heard this conversation talking about somebody who owns lots of buildings. You have a technology that helps make what's inside of these buildings cleaner and more the air more virus-free. It's something that's used at Johns Hopkins. It's used on some private planes. Explain your technology.
Sure. GPS's technology is installed in the building's HVAC system, which treats the entire space, not just a single area like a portable room air cleaner. Our technology generates hundreds of millions of ions per second, which travel through the ductwork and into the building. And when these ions arrive into the space, they provide two key benefits. First, the particles are removed out of the air faster. And second, the ions reduce the quantity of infectious pathogens in the space. A good illustration of the problem will probably help with the understanding. So imagine your coworker sneezes. Millions upon millions of virus particles are now launched into the air. They will remain in the air and be infectious for a period of time. As of right now, we don't know that period of time, but researchers are currently trying to figure out that problem. The longer these particles remain in the air and the greater the quantity of the infectious pathogens, the higher the probability of the transmission. So that's why our top two key benefits, removing the particles faster and the ions reducing the quantity of the infectious pathogens, is so critical to the safety of the occupants.
Why don't most big buildings have technology like this now, right? Even before the virus, there's the flu, there's the cold, lots of stuff is transmitted through people sneezing or being in contact with each other. Explain why there isn't more of that. Why isn't that sort of built into the architecture of buildings in general?
Well, in general, in the past, buildings were designed for comfort, cooling, and heating. And so they weren't designed necessarily for indoor air quality or to protect the occupants in the building. Most of the filtration in the building was actually designed to protect the heating and cooling equipment to keep it clean. So now there's such an awareness out in the market. Indoor air quality means something totally new. It's now shifting from comfort, cooling, and heating and wellness to being more about the air quality in the building and how it can actually address these pathogens in the space and help people feel safer being in the buildings.
Do the large airlines use this now, or is it just mainly private carriers?
Currently, it's only private carriers using it, but the large airliners are certainly interested in the technology now, and we've been in discussions with quite a few, especially over the past couple of months, because they've realized that this is a concern on people's minds. People are becoming educated about how this virus is transmitting, and they want to be able to approach it in a methodical manner so they can help their customers understand how it's transmitting and what they're doing about that in the airlines.
And will you or have you sought, like, can you get CDC verification that this actually works to be able to snuff out the coronavirus? Like, I assume it combats all viruses or anything that's spread when people sneeze or in contact. Like, will you actually seek that out?
Well, what we're doing right now is currently undergoing a lot of testing with our technology, and we're actually using CDC affiliated labs to confirm the product's effectiveness against various pathogens. And those could include norovirus, COVID-19 when it's available. That strain is not even available to the labs right now for products like our technology to be tested against that. So what we have to use are pathogens that are very close to that particular contaminant, like human coronavirus. But we are using those CDC affiliated labs to be tested and confirm what those inactivation rates are, both in a Petri dish setting, which is in a smaller glove box type application, as well as eventually we'll be able to aerosolize it and test it in a larger chamber to see what it does as well.
Everybody's more health conscious now. Everyone's much more aware about how sort of a virus spreads. You see a lot more people with masks on or gloves on. Is it technology like this? Like, can I get that in my house?
You can get this in your home. And actually, this technology is not new. It's been around over 100 years. And over the last 12 years, we've advanced this technology, making it ozone-free, effective, affordable, and even sustainable. And with our technology, it requires no replacement parts and it's maintenance-free. So homeowners really love it from that aspect. So as you'd mentioned earlier, we're already deployed in over 150,000 installations, including the leading hospitals, universities, large employers, airports, private jets, which you've already mentioned, arenas, and all the way down to that residential application. So with our technology, it's going to perform the same regardless of the application, and it's just provided in different forms to fit any existing or new HVAC system.
A lot of people are thinking about sporting events. Like, is it available or could it be applied in a obviously an indoor arena or at a casino in Las Vegas? Like, can it work at a scale that large?
It certainly can, and it's actually been used in large sporting arenas around the country as well as casinos. So some of those applications are already seeing the benefits of the technology in reducing the particles and the pathogens in those larger applications. Because the product is designed in a scalable format, it doesn't matter if it's a residential application or a capacity that requires 300,000 people in a sporting arena. We have a technology that can fit such a wide range because it is scalable and in a modular type form.
And you're a technologist, even either at your company or beyond your company. What's the next big thing in being able to apply technology to air quality? What is something that doesn't exist today that might in a couple years?
Well, this technology is starting to really be expanded into many more applications. The awareness of it is certainly increasing over at least the last several months. And so I think going forward, you're going to see the building environment being designed for not just comfort, cooling, and heating, but for how to address the particles and the pathogens in the space. And I think that's going to be part of the building design team's thought process right up front, not just an afterthought, because right now it seems to be an afterthought, at least until recently. And so now this technology is being designed to go into these existing buildings. And I really think if you want to have the best air quality, it's going to have to include this type of system. And I think, in fact, going forward, building systems and codes are going to change to require this type of technology, just like a sprinkler system in the current commercial buildings.
Charlie, thank you very much for this conversation, and thank you for making the broader conversation about the future of buildings and workplace safety possible. Have a good day, and back to you, Mike Allen.
Thank you.
Well, Jim VandeHei, I might have known I could count on you to dig into the casino angle. So thank you, and thank Charlie Waddell and his team at Global Plasma Solutions, GPS, for making these conversations possible. Our next guest, Caryn Seidman-Becker, is the CEO of Clear, the biometrics ID company. When I go to the airport, I've paid a membership fee, and so I go through the Clear lane. I use my two fingers. I put them there. If my fingers are dirty, I can use my eyes. You can get on the plane without even having an ID. So if you're like me, might forget or lose your ID, Clear works. Caryn Seidman-Becker, I've been waiting for this moment. I get to say to you what your teammates say when I walk up to the Clear line. Welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike, and you'll be happy to know touchless travel. Your eyes today at the airport are your driver's license and your boarding pass. So we're already leaning into the environment that we're in.
Unless you get spot checked and every 10th person or whatever, they actually need an ID. So I can't be too forgetful about my ID. But Caryn, your team has been using this very tough moment for the country to innovate. And when you talk about touchless travel, blow my mind. When I go back to flying and as your technology deploys, what's going to be possible that I might not have imagined a couple months ago?
Right. This is so much broader than travel, right? Clear was born out of 9/11, which really created screening 1.0. And our North Star was always about making it safer and easier for customers. And here we are at COVID-19, at almost 19 years later, post 9/11, which has created the need for screening 2.0. And there's a lot of structural similarities between 1.0 and 2.0, right? It's a multi-layered approach. There is no silver bullet, but you've got to build these layers in order to bring down risk and increase customer confidence. And so I think what you are going to see, not only in travel, which was deeply impacted by 9/11, but across so many industries that are having the same structural problem, bringing back both their employees and their customers, from the airport and airlines to sports stadiums and teams to office buildings, as Scott talked about, to restaurants, is the need for this multi-layered approach using innovation and technology like biometrics. So Clear created Health Pass this week. We've announced it. And Health Pass is all about using biometrics, facial recognition in the airport, iris, all touchless, to help get America moving and open so many different businesses. You got to get started. And really importantly, and there's a lot of conversation about it, we've built a brand for 10 years known for trust, and that is crucial to us. And we believe that you can bring this technology to the market in a way that both protects privacy and drives safety. And so when you come to the airport, mind blowing. You can do biometric bag drop using your face to drop your bag. You can download Health Pass and answer the questionnaire, CDC questions, or can be changed for other questions depending on the environment that you're in. Facial recognition or iris, both touchless, can be merged with thermal scanning so that all-in-one experience where you are your driver's license, your boarding pass, or your ticket to get into the event, your temperature, and then links, just like we link to your boarding pass, links to lab results. And those lab results could be antibody PCR or ultimately the vaccine. A few years ago when our family went to Kenya, we got the yellow fever vaccine and we had to carry around a yellow card. You are your yellow card. You are your vaccine. So you can have an all-in-one touchless experience.
Now, Caryn, we did a little pregame conversation, and you were telling me that as Clear envisions it, my experience could change even before I leave my house. Tell me about the minute-to-minute idea that you have for my flying future.
Right. It's not just an idea, it's coming. So the answer is, I also think what consumers want and what we saw after 9/11 as anxiety rises, you're talking to the ultimate control freak, right? You want predictability and control over your experience. And so we are launching a home to gate app for travel, which connects traffic information, plus how long your security experience will take, plus all you have to do is enter your flight number and airline. We'll know what gate you're going to, and we've mapped out how long it will take to get to that gate. So you add traffic plus Clear plus where your gate is for a time when you should leave your house to get to your gate with 35 minutes to spare. If you want to adjust that time frame, we can do that, as well. But crucial from predictability from the very beginning to the very end.
So Jim VandeHei, who's still on the line, is going to chuckle about that because your Home to Gate app is going to make it possible for me to cut it even closer, which I think people did not think was possible. So is it possible for me to adjust my window to 31 minutes and 30 seconds? Can your app do that?
I think you might have to do that subtraction in your head, but at least we'll start by showing you the 35. But then also, again, Clear is all about partnership, right? We're having great conversations with Scott and what they're doing at RXR and conversations in the travel industry, because you can also start to think about if there's time frames you want travelers to come, or if there's certain doors you want to send people to, starting to parse that again, to bring people back to work, to bring them back to play, to ultimately bring the fans back to the stadium. What door, how long, that control, that information, that transparency.
Now, Caryn, Clear had already started to roll out to stadiums, concerts. Tell us how you imagine the future of restaurants using Clear technology.
So it's been a really natural fit in sports, right? Where we already have distribution, fans, and great partnerships and that all-in-one experience. But start to think about the restaurant experience. Open table and reservation systems are amazing. I use them. But then you get there and you say, Seidman-Becker, party of 4 at 8 p.m. And then you remind them of your allergies and your favorite wine. When you get to the restaurant, knowing that, you've answered the questionnaire and that you don't have, a temperature or your lab results through linking, they can also know that Caryn's there. They can drive hospitality. So I actually think not only can you make restaurant and public spaces safer, but you also can actually materially enhance the customer experience through personalization. And we're talking to great folks in the industry like Danny Meyer, who are really focused on not only how they bring their employees back safely, and I think that's really important. This is a two-sided market when you're bringing employees back to work. Employees want to know that the customers are safe. Customers want to know that the employees are safe. You can say that for any industry.
Caryn, we always like to talk to our guests about leading in crisis. Something that Axios CEO Jim VandeHei has done is take the approach of over-communicating. Like, you have a similar twist on that. Tell us about your Nightcast.
So we send out Caryn's nightly nightcap. And we've really driven transparency and communication. When you're all together, obviously we took it for granted, and I wasn't telling you what I was doing today, interesting conversations or learnings. I mean, we have a Slack channel, we're sharing things, but we've driven a whole new level of transparency, collaboration, words of motivation and insight. And I think it's actually our teams are working more closely and cohesively today than ever before, which is, ironic. And I think lessons we'll take back.
And so every other night, how long does it go? What are the mechanics of it?
It's pretty short, much shorter than your guys' amazing newsletter, right? So it's 3 different pieces. What I did today, featuring teams and inspiration.
I love it. That's great, smart brevity. And before we say goodbye, we have one question from an Axios reader. This is Anders Erickson in Wilsonville, Oregon, who wants to know when there's going to be a clear lane at PDX, the international airport in Portland, Oregon.
So we've been working on Portland for years, and we're hoping it's on the roadmap for 2020 or 2021. We would love to be there.
Okay, it's where I fly in to see my family, so I'll look forward to that. And Caryn, we always like to finish with one fun thing, and it sounds like you might have had the shortest spring break on record.
One fun thing beyond, I thought about it after we talked about it yesterday, carpool karaoke of late is a fun tip for anybody who needs to get their kids out. But one fun thing of late is the 40 hours we spent in Utah. Got there, realized it was not the right place for our family, and turned around and came home.
Well, Caryn Seidman-Becker, thank you and your team at Clear for the conversation, and I'm going to hold you to that on PDX.
We're trying. Thanks for having us. Me.
Thank you so much, Caryn, and we'd like to thank Global Plasma Solutions for making these conversations possible. Axios CEO Jim VandeHei, who's been on the line. And Jim, there's been so much focus on work from home. It was eye-opening to me how much technology is being deployed on returning to work from the office.
Yeah, so you would think that our pre-existence to the virus was gross, right? Like, what, you're touching elevators and you're sitting that close and people are sneezing and you don't have something that vaporizes that. Somehow all that happened and I haven't been sick in 6 or 7 years. So, but yeah, it's like, I do think, like, if you're a building owner or if you're an employer who needs people in one space, like, you've got to figure out these technologies. And in all these crises there's lots of opportunities. Because I think most companies like ours are trying to balance, do you let your people work from home forever? Do you let some work from home? And when they come back into the office, how do you make it as clean and safe as possible? And as you've heard today, there's lots of steps to that. It's like, how do you get into the door without touching the door? How do you get into the elevator without touching the elevator? Once you're in your office, how do you make sure it's disinfected? If it's disinfected, how do you take a place where you cram people in and now move them 6 feet apart? Do you do that in shifts? Do you not do that in shifts? How do you test and not test? What do you do if someone tests positive? How do you keep your air clean? And so I do think whatever the end result of this is, whatever changes these buildings make and all of us as business owners make, they're going to be better for the employer, right? You're obviously going to have a healthier place and a safer place to work in, but it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be quick. It's not going to be one size fits all. And I think you're looking at 18 months or whatever it is before people truly figure out what work looks like when you start to return to something that truly does approximate normal.
And Jim, something that a couple of the guests mentioned was how much things changed after 9/11 and how much of a new reality there was then. And so this is a reminder, we're not returning to anything. Like our working, social, entertainment, all those experiences could be very different in both look, feel, and how we go about them.
They will, and now we have all these laboratories called the states that are testing it. In my home state of Wisconsin, the Supreme Court of the state overruled the governor, and now businesses are open again, and your bars are open. People are doing shots. People are hugging. We're going to find out how quickly the virus spreads and what that does to the get back to work movement there. You have other states that are being a little more careful. You have some tech companies. Twitter this week announced that people can work from home forever. Like, what is that? There's going to be entire industries that are created off of catering to people who work from home forever. It's going to affect the real estate business. Do you need more space because you need more space between the individual people, or do you need less space because a lot of your people are working at home? And so the ricochet effect of this virus on almost every dimension of a company is startling. You and I deal with it every day as business owners, as founders, in terms of thinking about every single little aspect. And that's why when people are like, I've always been skeptical that things will get normal quick, because I just think about my own life and our own business, and there's nothing close to normal. And every single aspect of it's changed forever, not just us directly, but all the vendors that sort of feed off of us or that we feed into. And so I think that to extract the virus and the effects that it's had on us individually, us economically, or us corporately, again, 18 months, 2 years before anything looks like it used to look.
And all politics is local. A little tip to go for our viewers. A couple of our guests today talked about leading and communicating in crisis. And here at Axios, for our 190 or so colleagues, you put a huge premium from day one on over communicating.
Yeah, one of the simple lessons I've learned in leadership in the last 12 years is, like, when you are saying something so often that you're annoying the hell out of yourself, you've only begun to say it enough that people are hearing it. And now when people are at home, you have to communicate over and over and over and over again, because people are nervous. People are anxious. Even if you tell them their job's safe, they look around and they think their job might not be safe. And they want context and they want transparency. And you heard it from the CEO of Clear, transparency and communications, kind of buzzwords, but if you actually put them into practice, they're magical. They really are magical internally, because you then get people aligned. You get the mischief making sort of washed away because people know what's going on and they trust what you're saying. And if you can get those things right, particularly in this work from home reality, then things are better. And now as we transition from work from home to some hybrid approach, it's going to be more important than ever.
Well, Jim VandeHei, thank you for being our bars and casino correspondent. I think in Axios PM, you're going to see a picture from Wisconsin. Your former neighbors didn't seem to waste any time last night as soon as the work from home, as soon as the open up order was issued.
It seems that the bars and restaurants in Wisconsin got crowded pretty quick. I mean, people, listen, everybody's everybody's eager to get back. It's not something I would recommend. I still think that there's so many unknowns that being responsible, certainly like in my own household, trying to be super responsible. I'll say my family members back in Oshkosh are being very responsible, so follow their lead.
Good advice. Thank you, Jim, and thank Global Plasma Solutions for this conversation today, looking ahead to what it's going to be like when we do return to work. Thank all of you for taking a break to absorb these ideas, come along for these conversations. I'd like to thank the Axios events team, which has pioneered these Axios virtual events and are so popular with our readers. I'd love to see you later today on Axios PM. Sign up axios.com. And from my TV room, probably to yours, wishing health, safety, sanity to you and yours. And I'll see you on axios.com.